A very good evening, and thanks for clicking on to the Saturday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Before we continue with the video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if all things go well, I am going to be delivering the 81st edition of the Global Weather and Climate Report tomorrow live here on YouTube. So I'm expecting to go live at approximately 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So if you're bored, if you have nothing to do on your late Sunday afternoon, then check out markvoganweather.com here on YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer some questions. It should be roughly 45 minutes. That is the time frame that I'm hoping to be live streaming for. So stay tuned for that if you have the time to do so, and I would welcome your appearance. This is the current snow cover across the northern hemisphere. Not a great deal of snow cover to speak about in our neck of the woods. As you can see here, you have to kind of twist your head to the left to be able to see Europe, as it's looking actually more focused on North America and that side of the northern hemisphere compared to our neck of the woods. But you can get the general idea. The yellows represent ice. The snow is represented in white, as you can see. And also we've got a pretty snow-covered Scandinavia at the moment. And parts of Highland Scotland has got some snow to speak about here. North America, you can see a reasonable snow cover, but nothing significant for the time of the year, really. And it looks as if we are in the midst of the third warmest February on record for the United States. Looking at rainfall is quite interesting. This is a latest graphic here presented and produced, should say, more by the Met Office. This is rainfall amount in percentage compared to average for the entire month of February. So through the first 16 days of the month, you can see that parts of England, many parts of England actually, is running average to even slightly above average. And this is for the whole month, remember. So we're only halfway through February, and already there is a large swathe of southern UK that has average to above average rainfall here. So the Met Office go on to say that southern England has already received 119% of their February rainfall. We would expect usually around 55%. So the wet pattern that we seen first developing during the month of July, way back in the middle of last year, continues. And I firmly believe, anyway, that El Nino combined with warmer than average sea surface temperatures has turned the rainfall pattern around on its head, because we did have a year or so ago a fairly dry overall rainfall distribution across the UK and Ireland, and that was because of the 3-year La Nina. But we did see the big turnaround. I think the warm sea surface temperatures combined with El Nino and combined with other factors as well. I don't think it's just that. I think it's more complex than just pinpointing one thing as the main driver to a particular weather pattern. But it's certainly nonetheless rather interesting, actually, when you look at the year's rainfall overall. We'll look at that in a little bit more detail tomorrow in the live stream. We're going to look at the global picture. Obviously it's a global weather report. So we're going to look at temperature anomaly for the month to date, also the year to date, and talk a little bit about climate stuff as well. So you can interact with myself by writing your comments in the live chat, and I'll try to answer some of the questions as best I can. Remember, a lot of the stuff that I have learned over the years is self-taught, so I'm not an expert, I'm not a qualified meteorologist, but I'll certainly do the best to give you some of my opinion with regards to various aspects that's taking place at the moment. But nonetheless, rather interesting to see the wet theme continue, especially across more southern areas of the UK. Notice here there's a little bit of blue here representing just to the east of Inverness, actually, which is rather interesting to see. slightly average to slightly above average rainfall up in this region as well. But generally speaking, there is lesser rainfall across Northern Ireland, northwestern England, and Scotland overall. If you notice here, so this is the so we've seen a wet period so far through the month of February for the first 16 days, and you can see as we play through this is a total accumulated precipitation of the GFS, and this wet pattern is going to continue. The Atlantic is not shutting down. We are going to start to see some subtle shifts potentially in the pattern as we move through next week. But nonetheless, we are going to continue to see this wet theme maintain itself. And you can see with the total accumulated precipitation, the emphasis being on the west facing areas of not just the UK and Ireland, but the western side of the continent in general, means that we've got a predominantly westerly airflow off the Atlantic, and the areas that are exposed to the west facing parts of the UK, Ireland, and Europe is seeing wetter conditions compared to places further east. Notice here tremendous amounts of rainfall across northwestern Iberia, and I'll show you in a second here just why that's the case. The drought area of Barcelona, Catalonia, northeastern Spain looks as if they're still struggling to see rainfall. Unfortunately, here the wettest conditions primarily across the northwest of the country here, northwestern Portugal as well, Western Ireland, southwestern and northwestern Scotland, parts of North Wales, into the southwest of England here, drier conditions further east. So that generally gives you the idea of west to northwest or west to southwest airflow means that the west facing areas are going to see the most rainfall overall. If you look at the UK close up and all the way out to what is the 3rd of March, there's the wet conditions. So across the south, southwest, West Wales, northwest England, and the western side of Scotland, Western Ireland also is going to see more significant amounts of rainfall. A lot less rainfall, if you notice here, down across the Borders region in particular here. We've got only 19 millimetres of rain versus 200 plus millimeters of rain in parts of the west. So wet conditions are going to continue. The jet stream, interesting stuff. We'll actually look at the jet in just a second here, but look at the 500 millibar geopotential height anomaly chart here. This is the weekly, so this is off the CFSV2, and this is the 7-day increments. Now, the upcoming 7 days, you can see that we've got a negative up towards the northwest of the UK here, so up over the North Atlantic, we've got a pretty strong area of high pressure, if you notice, extending across the mid-Atlantic into Iberia here. We've also got a lot of region over Europe, and therefore we maintain this kind of westerly flow. Now notice the difference as we skip towards week 2. Notice here that area of high pressure then kind of pushes west, northwest, off Iberia, into the Atlantic and up towards Greenland here. And we've got the trough now digging southwards over the UK and Ireland here. So therefore, with a ridge over, or a negative, should I say, actually over the eastern half of the United States, we've got something a little bit colder. And I say the word colder, we're closer to average to slightly below average as opposed to very warm compared to average. If we look at the European view of this, you can get the better idea of what I'm talking about here. So this is week 1, and you can see the region largely dominating the continent here. But then into week 2, you can see here that we've got quite a different shift in the overall upper pattern. Now, if we look at the rainfall upcoming 7-day period of the model, it's wetter across the south, drier across the north. And that is indicative of more of a blocky setup over the North Atlantic here. If we look at the temperature anomaly chart here for the same period, it's slightly below average. If you notice, this is the period between the 23rd and the 1st of March. Week 1, firmly warmer than average. UK, Ireland, and the continent in general. But we definitely have a flip around to something colder towards the final, 10 days or so of February here. And that could be quite significant, by the way, because we could be headed for one of the warmest Februaries on record. If this was to not happen, I think we would be right up there with one of the warmest on record. But if we get this cool spell that's expected, and I say cool rather than cold because we need to remember that the end of February can deliver some brutal cold. This is not going to be brutal cold, but it is going to be colder than what we've seen. And that may just drop us from maybe being the second or third warmest February to perhaps the fifth or sixth warmest February. I know that sounds like I'm splitting hairs, but it could be somewhat significant in terms of where we rank February of 2024. And then as we continue to play through, you notice here that the CFS V2 brings milder conditions back into play once again. And then as we continue to play through the sequence here, there's no clear-cut signal for anything particularly cold as we go into the month of March here. Remember what's taking place with regards to the stratosphere, etc., etc. But the Arctic Oscillation is expected to go positive, actually. And the negative North Atlantic Oscillation doesn't look as if it's going to materialize too much, but I still wouldn't rule out winter being done yet. I know you probably say to yourself, Mark, just quit it now. Winter's finished and we need to look towards springtime, but I still wouldn't necessarily buy into that idea just yet anyway. For the simple fact that, you know, with the stratospheric situation and other aspects, final strat warming, etc., etc., I wouldn't necessarily buy into that one just yet. Finally, 23rd of February is Marky Boy's birthday, and I've said already in a video, I think it was yesterday or the day before, saying that quite often the 23rd of February can be quite a snowy date, especially across more northern areas of the UK. And I thought, out of interest, I'll look at the GFS and see what the 23rd of February looks like. And this is as the clock strikes midnight, the 23rd. Notice here that there is a reasonable coverage of snow across the northern UK. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with regards to this. Let's finally look at the overview chart of the GFS and see what's showing. That, incidentally, this is what it's showing. A 945 millibar low just to the east of Scotland. We've got a bitterly cold northerly wind and heavy snowfall. That would certainly be a birthday present from Mother Nature for myself. That's for sure. But let's have a look and see anyway at what the GFS is indicating as we go through the next few days. So a frontal system moving through pretty much now into this evening. Heavy rainfall associated with that, especially as that band pushes east across the Midlands, southeastern portions of England. We're going to see some fairly heavy rain for a period of time. That clears out, moves into the near continent. We'll get a little bit of a break here. Notice the winds are coming straight off the Atlantic, so nothing really cold, nothing really to write home about. There's that strong area of high pressure that was seen on the 500 millibar pattern across the south here. Nothing really exciting to speak about, but nonetheless, we just have to sit back, relax, and enjoy what Mother Nature does bring us. As you see here, as we move into early Tuesday, we've got another frontal system seen by the GFS moving through. Notice something here. Remember, I showed you the CFSV2 and the chance of that ridge starting to move up into the heart of the North Atlantic here. If anything, that's going to turn our winds more northwesterly and areas of low pressure coming down from a more northwesterly direction. Remember, there's a reasonable amount of cold air over eastern North America. That is getting swept out into the North Atlantic. Yes, there is going to be a pullback of that cold air as it moves across the relatively warm North Atlantic here. So we're going to lose a lot of that cold air as it reaches the UK. But nonetheless, there should be enough cold associated with that flow from Canada to the UK that generates something a little bit more wintry, especially if the jet stream starts to sink southwards here. And you notice as we move towards Thursday of next week, 22nd of February here, there's the area of high pressure that I'm talking about now starting to move westwards, but also northwards. And therefore, we're starting to see the trough digging south over the UK, Ireland, and further south still. And therefore, we're going to start to see heavy rainfall, moisture getting drawn into the northwest of Iberia here. But as that system digs southwards, we are opening the door to something a little bit colder, and we may introduce something more wintry possibly in a broader scale, but certainly that would be an impressive deep area of low pressure at 945 millibars here. Long way out, but notice look at the surface chart here. Look at the overview chart, and if we look back at what the CFSV2 has for the same period here. So this is week 2 of the month, and there's the area of high pressure digging northwards here. We'll look at let's have a quick look and see at the northern hemisphere view again. It'd actually be better if I look at the North Atlantic view. In fact, we will do that. Sorry, just bear with me 1 second because I want to show you this here. Remember, this is the GFS ensemble, or CFSV2, sorry, I beg your pardon, CFSV2, 500 millibar for the period between the 23rd and the 1st of March. So if you look at this here, there's the ridge of high pressure extending from the Azores up towards Greenland. There's the deep trough dropping south over the UK and Ireland. If you look at the same view here, very similar at the surface here, but we've got a fairly deep centre of low pressure. And exclusively to the east of the UK means that we have an open door to something colder. If we look at the 850s, you can see here that it has some colder, or nothing major, colder that may bring more wintry precipitation. I think it's over high ground as opposed to low levels, etc. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. Like I said, if technology works out well for me, I will have a live stream tomorrow at 4 p.m. So set your alarm for that, and it would be good to see you here tomorrow at 4 o'clock for the global weather and climate report. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening, and I'll see you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Bye for now.